We're here in Rome for the weekend for the funeral of Pope Francis. Through the weekend, we'll be trying to share a few snippets to give you a flavour of the event through the eyes of young adults we meet and young adults who are here with us.
Hi, my name's Phil. I'm from Manchester. I came out to Rome to be near Pope Francis during his funeral. I felt it was really important. He's been a really influential person in my young adult life in the church through his actions, through his words that he's given us, through the encyclicals Christus Vivit, Evangelii Gaudium, Laudato Si have been hugely important for my formation as a young adult in the church. And so I felt that I wanted to pay my final respects to him and to be as close to him as possible.
Hi, I'm Megan. I'm from Bolton, but now live in Liverpool. Going to Rome for the funeral of Pope Francis was really important to me. His papacy has had such a huge impact on my life over the last few years. His leading with compassion, with humility, and always for the people who are least in our societies and our communities, and really moving to the peripheries. It's really inspired who I am and who I want to be, and how to be a disciple of Jesus. And it felt really important to go to Rome to say thank you to Pope Francis and to say goodbye. I wasn't going to go initially. I have quite a lot of crowd anxiety, and being in busy places and in heat is not the thing that I like to do, and I can get really, really anxious. But on a lot of reflection, I decided that I would regret not going more than I would regret being there and regret that anxiety, and I'm so glad that I went.
Hi, my name is Joanna and I'm from Bristol, originally from Staffordshire. I'm Hannah and I live in Liverpool, but originally I come from the Czech Republic. I live in Rome, yes. Originally for the canonization of Blessed Carlos Acutis, but also we wanted to go for the Jubilee year in general, and we booked tickets very last minute for Carlo. Yeah, but with COVID passing, so we still decided to come because it's a tremendous time filled with graces. So, and to pray for him and to pray for the church. During the Jubilee, we're just super excited, and just also praying for Pope Francis, and we'll be going to the funeral.
Hello, my name is Kate, and we're just queuing up to go see Pope Francis lying in state. First of all, it's amazing to see so many people here. It's quite an overwhelming experience, but in a lovely way. Everyone's all here for the same reason. It's really important for me to be here. Pope Francis has been really key in my life and my vocation. I suppose growing up as a young adult, he's seen me through a huge chunk of that, a huge amount of my formation in the church, a huge amount of my life as a Catholic. And it was only right and fitting for me to be here. I was coming anyway for the canonisation of Blessed Carlo Acutis, so it feels very providential, I suppose, to be here to celebrate this wonderful man's life. One thing I have been reflecting on actually is that when we go to see Pope Francis, we'll walk through the Holy Door, and what strikes me most about that is that his final act is to see as many people through that door, because so many people are here to pay their respects to him, and that's so fitting for him and his mission and who he was, that everybody gets to experience that mercy and that love of God.
Hello, I'm Jack. I'm from Bath in Somerset.
So Jack, we went through on Thursday evening, we went through to see Pope Francis lying in state, didn't we? Yeah. How did you find it?
I think seeing Francis lying in state was a real opening of my heart to the fact that he was gone. I think, having seen him on Easter Sunday in his wheelchair around St. Peter's Square, it happened so suddenly that Monday morning, it just didn't feel real. So being there with a crowd full of children and young families, that really felt like you were part of a church saying goodbye, and that was a lovely feeling.
Yeah. One of the things I thought about afterwards is that it was nice to have that time going in. So we had a bit of time catching up, but actually we talked both before and after a lot about our memories and experience of this.
Yeah.
It felt like a kind of like a sort of pilgrimage, It was kind of a shared thing going through, because the actual moment when you pass is only very brief.
Yes. Yeah. I think also, we went through the Jubilee door into the cathedral, and I hadn't planned on coming for the Jubilee year, and having that experience of sort of tying a Jubilee year of hope with something that's quite sad was a juxtaposition that I didn't see coming this year. And as you say, having that moment of reflection on what Francis means to us as individuals, because in the modern social media age, I've read a lot of what the Pope said. I've seen more of the Pope visually, so it feels like he's part of my daily life a bit more than previous popes. So yeah, it was a bit more personal, having that moment of reflection, that moment to say goodbye, that moment to think about, how has Francis's papacy affected my life? It changed how I work, changed how I worship, changed the way I see the church, and it's something I'll really miss now it's gone. But it was able to have that time to reflect on that. I found really, really a blessing.
It was an early start for the funeral. Some of us were up from 2:30 to get into the queue, so we actually got into St. Peter's Square. There was a strange atmosphere in the queue, excitement about being present, but also anxiety about waiting and getting a good spot. People were also just sad, especially those we met who'd known him. Me and Megan were lucky enough to be given tickets, so we could be way up front, and we were just by the people who weren't important enough to be sat with the dignitaries. Thankfully, the others got a good spot as well, with chairs, so we didn't feel too bad. And this is where it all happened. I was a wreck as we left. We were all just sat, tired and sad. The tolling bell you can hear defined the atmosphere, the mood of the place.
Today we were at the funeral in St. Peter's Square, and we started queuing at about 4 o'clock in the morning. And it was really encouraging to see, we all queued together. We were all stood there for a couple of hours waiting to be let in. And it was priests, it was nuns, it was families with small children, a bishop or two. And, we were all stood together from different countries, different backgrounds, all here to say goodbye. And yeah, it felt to me a real unity of the church moment of, we're part of a global church, but how often do we feel we're part of a global church? Well, today we really felt it. And you're in the square and you had people with flags from different countries, and you had the prayers in the Mass offered in different languages. It was a tour of all the different places where the church is working, and all the places that God is active in the world. And church is there, and our church is growing there. And it was really encouraging to be part of that crowd. And yeah, it was boiling hot, but we all took care of each other, and we all sort of got to know one another. And everyone was very understanding. There were moments when it was, you'd been stood for a long time, but we treated each other with kindness. And I think it's because we all had that little voice in the back of our heads of, what does Francis expect? What is Francis's church? It's one of peace and understanding and a focus on that. And we lived that today.
I thought the funeral service yesterday was beautiful. I was really privileged to be in St. Peter's Square itself for the funeral. Felt a real closeness to Pope Francis and to the entire church as we celebrated his life and commended him to God. I thought the liturgy reflected Pope Francis's papacy really well. It was a beautifully but simple service that was full of symbolism that we know that Pope Francis gave us a lot of symbolism throughout his papacy. So we're here this morning on the second Sunday of Easter outside the Venerable English College in Rome, where we're going to celebrate Mass of the second Sunday of Easter. I think that's really profound that whilst yesterday we commended Pope Francis to God, we're here today to celebrate the resurrection, and in the hope that Pope Francis will be with the God that he served so well during his life.
It was a really powerful funeral. It was a really powerful time to be in Rome and to collectively be saying thank you and goodbye together. It was a real special time, and I think something that Francis would have really appreciated, that his funeral fell during the Jubilee of Teenagers and just before the Jubilee of Disabilities. So Rome was filled with so many young people, so many young adults, and so many people who struggle with disabilities in their life in a way that it wouldn't usually be. And there was a real sense of joy and life of the church that I think was really special and spiritual on that day.